Welcome to the Super Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the new Super Gamer Podcast, episode 201. Our guest this week is a speedrunner, but also is the person behind Peanut Butter the dog, the speedrunner, who I'm sure many of listeners have heard of at this point. Recently did Summer Games Done Quick, did Ken Griffey Jr. It was awesome. But we have JSR here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Peanut Butter is there with you, so we kind of have both of you.
Yeah, he's doing his dog thing right now, but he's very much excited to be on as well. Has been very gracious to spend his very busy time to join us tonight.
Well, okay, let's get right to it. So, Summer Games Done Quick, SGDQ, just happened. And so, you know, obviously I watched GDQ, I love GDQ, but I was at work and I saw a tweet about, we're going to be locking the door. Like, I didn't actually look ahead at the schedule. And I saw a tweet from GDQ saying, like, we're going to be locking the doors for this run, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, that's weird. I don't know what that's all about, but okay. So I happened to check it out, and it's packed. And, like, it took me a while. Like, I was half paying attention. And I'm like, whoa, this is, like, so many people here. What's going on? Oh, my goodness. There's a dog playing Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball. Now it makes sense.
No, and they were very gracious, very accommodating. GDQ staff, Shockwave in particular, was very much, he wanted to make sure that not only was I taken care of, but he understood. I mean, Peanut Butter is an amazing dog, and we can get into a lot of the reasons why later, but the fact that he has adapted this quickly to being able to perform in front of people in that kind of environment, on top of everything else, like, he continues to amaze me every single day. He is absolutely the coolest dog. I might be biased, but he is the coolest dog.
Right. Well, I was wondering about the attention, the crowd, and all that, because Peanut Butter, you first got going on Gyromite was the game you first did with Peanut Butter. And obviously you're doing that at home at first, and it took 9 months of training, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, roughly 9 months from when the concept of, hey, he can do this trick that I taught him with the paw. I wonder if he could do that on a game controller. 9 months later, we performed our run at AGDQ. It was quite the process to get to that point, but when we did that run, we were not convinced that he could do it in person. And in fact, GDQ wasn't at the time, we weren't sure they would even accept the run from a dog, simply because of the logistics of it all. You know, there's a lot that goes into that, not just for me getting PB over there, but they have to make sure there's not going to be any allergies, that, you know, is the dog trained? Is he friendly? Is he going to be pooping all over the place? You know, there's a lot that goes into that kind of thing. And for us as well, I didn't think he was going to be able to perform that well in front of people. I genuinely thought he was going to get distracted. Mostly just because he is a dog, and I've never seen a dog with this kind of patience that he has, this kind of focus. And it really didn't dawn on me that we would ever be able to do this in person genuinely until leading up to AGDQ. There was a lot of buzz about Peanut Butter as well. And IGN offered to come out here, and they flew to Vegas. They came to my home, and they shot an interview here, and they brought a camera crew with mics and lights and big cameras. And they wanted to have Peanut Butter set up exactly where he was going to do his run so they could get photos of him in action. And they were like, it doesn't matter if he's distracted. We just want to get video of him pressing the button and then video of the gameplay. So we set it up. We got the controller out. I made sure he was going to be hungry. I made sure that all of our pre-game routine was taken care of. And they came in. They were super cool. But, you know, I was expecting Peanut Butter to not be able to perform. I'd never had him in that situation before. And he nailed it. He nearly completed a run with a PB in front of this camera crew. The only reason he didn't is I goofed at the very end. And he didn't miss a beat. They were stunned. I was stunned. And I remember immediately after they left, Crispy, my good buddy, who is the co-trainer who was on stage with me, He's my best friend, and we talked about it that night. And I told him, I was like, we made a mistake. We should have done this in person, because this is absolutely possible. And even he kind of doubted it. Like, it's just too much to expect from a dog. But every single time I step up with it, every single time I try to challenge him, like right now, we just started working on two paw button presses, where he presses two buttons down with two paws, and he's already picking up on it. Like, he continues to amaze me every single time I challenge him.
And the packed house at SGDQ, like, it was loud too. Like, I mean, the ending, it could not have been better. It was storybook ending. Like, what was it, 12th inning walk-off home run? It was, and people went nuts. It was so fun to watch. But even that, like, with that kind of, crowd reaction, like, PB, was there any issue?
No, I mean, we were a little concerned in our training, because even with what I just told you about the camera crew and all that, we still wanted to make sure we exposed him to as many different types of distractions for training as we could. So we took him to dog parks, we took him to PetSmart on adoption day, we took him to malls, and then the training that really solidified me in knowing that he was going to nail this was when we brought him to Crispy's house, because Crispy lives with his sister and his nieces and nephews. There are 4 children, and none of them are in grade school yet. So they're all very small children, and they're very much energetic and boisterous children. You know how kids are. And so, you go in there with this dog and you say, everybody, I need your help. We need to get really loud. I'm telling you. So we set up an X pen, and I started working with PB, and they started to scream and throw toys and yell. And they were so loud, they literally blew my eardrum out. And PB still performed. And I knew. I was so confident going into SGDQ that he was going to perform, until literally the day before, in our hotel room, we did our practice run. We didn't want to do our practice run even in the private rooms, because PB just draws too much attention. So we just I brought all my equipment. We practiced in the hotel room. And Spike Vegeta was there. That was the first time we worked with him. And Spike is a very awesome, very sweet dude, but he's also, a very hype man with a very, his voice commands attention. And PB had never met him before. So we did a dry run in our hotel room with Spike on the couch as a commentator. He was originally on the couch. And PB just had the absolute worst game he's ever had. And by the 9th inning, he wouldn't even respond to commands. And I don't know if it was because Spike was there and it was a new guy that was very loud, or if it was just bad timing. But I'll tell you, up until that moment, I was on top of the world confident. And then the next day, I was a freaking train wreck. Man, I was sweating bullets. I was just sitting on the sofa, just a complete train wreck. And again, big shouts out to Chris he took me for a walk and had a talk with me and basically just said, look, dude, the dog feeds off your energy. He loves you. He's going to perform if you're up there. If you're confident and you're ready to do this, he's going to perform. And it kind of helped. I was still very nervous going into the run, but once we got up on the stage, it stopped being an if and what and maybe thing, and it was just, time to perform. There's no time to second guess. You can't look at the crowd and think, oh my God, there's thousands of people watching me. If you think about that kind of thing, you're gonna choke, right? You just have to do what you're there to do. And Peanut Butter is all business. He's such a professional. I really owe so much to him. I mean, I know it's weird to say, I owe, as like, it's my dog, right? You got to give the credit to the owner, but I don't feel like I deserve that credit. Like, I'm an amateur dog trainer. I just love my dog, and he's really good at just working with me. And once we were sitting down and we started playing, I mean, there was a little bit of a distraction beforehand that I can touch on in a moment, but once we got locked in, he was on point. Like, from pretty much the 4th inning on, he was performing better than he'd ever performed, and got stronger as the game went on. It was absolutely amazing.
I love how much this is like an actual like athlete coach kind of dynamic. How like, as the coach, you need to take a walk, and the athlete's all business kind of thing. And even along those lines, like in an interview you did with Gabe Gerwin for GameSpot, you talk about it's like an athletic regimen. You talk about how like, oh, you need to make sure that PB's eating right before, he has to be ready to eat treats, but he can't be too hungry, and he needs to get his exercise and be ready to game. I think it's so cool.
It's the biggest reason why I don't do more content with PB on my channel. I try to do some content because people want to see him, but it's such a dramatic routine. It is literally an all-day thing. And when he can only perform for an hour before he starts to get tired, it's something that I only really do on my stream on special occasions or when we have a new game to show off. But he usually does perform whenever I pull that controller out. Like, he is getting better at that too. Like, I've noticed he'll jump up ready to play even if he's just eaten. And I do think there's a little piece of him that loves that attention, that thrives on it. And like, the comment that I heard from all of my friends the most that were just hanging out watching him is like, he acts like a celebrity, which is hilarious to me because like, I don't know where that comes from, but I adore watching it. It's very cute.
I'm pretty sure I've heard about like racehorses and whatnot. Like, they kind of learn to, oh yeah, I'm a star. Like, and then they kind of really enjoy that. I wonder if it's a similar thing.
He's definitely been a little bit more bored since we got home than he usually appears to be. Like, he's dying for attention and keeps bringing me toys and keeps coming up to me looking for me to just pet him. He just, I can tell that he really enjoyed all the folks coming up to him, and just, it was an experience for him too, because he's never been in that kind of situation before. We live by ourselves and we don't have any other pets. I do get to take him out and play with the neighborhood dogs and neighborhood kids a lot, and he gets to see my friends a lot, but you know what I mean? It's not the same. And like, it really was kind of just a lightning in a bottle situation with him and I. Like, the whole thing from when I got him all the way through the training, everything, I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate. And I'm just, yeah, I don't know what to say.
Before we go on a little farther, what was that distraction that happened right before the run?
Oh, okay. So again, GDQ staff was excellent. I don't want this to sound like it's a bad reflection on them at all, because they did everything to accommodate us. In fact, Shockwave went to the front of the stage before the run. You might have, if you were in the room, you probably remember this. He addressed the entire room and told them all, nobody approach the stage. Don't catcall PB. Don't bring your dogs up. Just enjoy the show and stay in your seats, basically, kind of thing is what he was saying. But GDQ was very concerned as well, rightfully so, that the crowd noise would be a distraction. So, like I was saying, we talked about it after the run, and Spike said that he felt his best role would be in the back couch area as like a hype man, not with a microphone, not to engage with PB. And that worked wonderfully with the crowd noise and stuff, by the way. Like, he was very much watching us and feeding off the vibe, and was excellent with that. Like, he did a freaking stand-up job. But so everything was great. We got all set up. PB was ready to go. In our warm-ups, he was money. And about 20 seconds before they turned the mic over to us and we were on camera, we were live, somebody backstage, I don't think they were staff, it was just somebody back there who was wearing sandals. Their sandal got caught on a cable and they tripped and went shin first, into the corner of the stage. So hard that it shook the stage. And because Peanut Butter plays on emulator, and GDQ doesn't want that to be an obvious thing, well, the mouse moved over the screen, and one of the tech jumps up on stage real quick and fixes it, and then immediately we're live. And PB was very distracted. Because the stage shook so hard, it scared us. Like, Chris even said that he thought the stage was falling because it felt like such a jarring bump that nobody was expecting, and there was a big curtain. We didn't see it happen. But if you ever watch his run back in the first 2 innings, he's very distracted. He won't focus on me at all. He was bad on his timing. He started to get better around the 3rd inning, and then we had a segment in the fourth where Chris was going to take over for an inning and I would answer questions on the couch. And I think that change of engagement and having me go over there kind of helped PB to kind of see, yeah, there's nothing wrong. We're good. I'm getting treats. And now I get to play with Chris instead of Dad. So it's like, for him, it was like a refreshing kind of change of pace. And then when I sat back down with him, he was on point. He was money.
So I know you've said you knew kind of right away that PB is smarter than your average dog, or he displayed to you that he's a smart dog. Mm-hmm. But what was it? Can you walk us through the whole, like, okay, he's smart. I think I'm going to get him doing speed runs. Like,
so it's kind of a long story, but I do like telling this story if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So he was a pandemic dog. I got him. I bought him in April of 2020. I got on furlough. We were on lockdown, and I wanted a dog because I was home alone. So over the years, I decided that I wanted to get a Shiba because I live in an apartment, and Shibas are great apartment dogs. I always wanted to get like a Labrador, but I don't have a yard. So, and in my research of the breed, I found that they are considered one of the smartest breeds. But they're also very much like moody, territorial, aggressive. Like they can be bad dogs if they're not trained well. So I made it a point to study as much as I could on dog training before I got him. And a YouTuber named Zach George, who is an excellent dog trainer, does positive reinforcement training and clicker training. And when I was growing up, we didn't do that. My dad was very old school. Not to say that it was wrong. It was how he thought was the best way to go about it. But I mean, a lot of that is, newspaper when they poop on the ground, or yell at them when they try to take food off the table, or when they chew on stuff. That old school mentality, it worked in the way that was bad to foster a good relationship with your pet, because it teaches them to fear rather than to do the right thing because of love. And it's a hard concept because it is frustrating at times. It is a very difficult thing to take on. But even that being said, PB, when I got him, and that was another thing too. I wanted to get a girl, and the girl dog, when they brought her out to me at the house when I finally got PB, she was so cute, but she was like really scared and timid. She peed. She wouldn't play with me. And granted, it's a little puppy, so I understand that, but I wanted to see the boy too. They brought out her brother, and that was PB. And he immediately just came right up to me. He was so engaging. He brought me a toy. He played tug of war with me. He was giving me kisses and just cuddling up with me, and I knew it. I fell in love with him instantly. But the moment we got home, I immediately started training him, going with what I'd learned from people like Zach George. And I'm telling you, within a month, he had all of his basic commands down. Sit, stay, leave it, lay down, go to your bed, come, all of that. He knew all of those. And I was blown away. And if that was me, I guess, I can't take all the credit though. I mean, I learned all this stuff from these wonderful trainers who, without them, I probably would have raised him a very wrong way for how a Shiba is, because they respond better to positive reinforcement. And that became kind of my hallmark with him whenever we worked on tricks or training, was that if he doesn't get it right, you can't get frustrated. You can't yell at him. They don't understand it. A dog's brain doesn't work that way. You have to make them feel like they're the ones that had the idea and then reward them for it. And so eventually I started teaching him tricks and stuff. I didn't know what to do with him. I was like, he's so smart that I want to try and teach him things that set him aside from other dogs, At first I was thinking just like agility tricks, they have those dog shows and stuff. And when I was training him, I taught him to put his paw on an object, and it kind of dawned on me that I could teach him to hit buttons, but it didn't really become something that I pursued at that point. Like, it didn't feel like something realistic, but he got really good at it. And in 2022, I speed ran a game in a project I did called the Angry Video Game Nerd Trials of JSR. That project started in 2018, and I finished it last year, and I had to speed run 200 games, one game from every episode of the Angry Video Game Nerd. That's a whole nother topic. The only reason it's relevant to the story is that I had a speedrun a game from that challenge for the Rob the Robot episode. And so I chose Gyromite because Stack Up is dumb and nobody should play that. But as I was learning it, it dawned on me. I said, oh my goodness. Because all Rob is just a glorified controller just hitting A and B. PB could totally do that. And then if I play game B, I don't even have to help. He could do a speed run of this. But that's impossible. There's no way he could do that. And so I told that story to my buddy Maya one day. We were hanging out in my community's voice chat. We hang out in there all the time. And he's like, dude, I have this old GameCube stick. I could send that to you. And we could turn it into a dog controller. And then you could try it. And just for fun. Like, no harm, no foul. Well, okay. So he sends me this controller, and I modified it so that PB would have big targets, because he's accurate to a point, but he's still a dog. You know, he's got to have a good target that I can have him aim for. And we tried it, and he got nearly to the end in the very first try. All I did was watch the screen and tell him when to press the buttons, and he did it. And at first, it felt like okay, this is cool, but he's not ever going to be able to complete a run, and are people even going to care? Well, he did complete a run. I want to say his first run was in July of last year, and we talked to the speedrun.com moderators. They made him a category, dog assistance, and we submitted this run, and it was a world record, and the video got no traction. Nobody cared. My streams were still around the same viewer numbers. It didn't seem to take off like I had hoped. So I just decided, okay, it's a gimmick. I'll pull it out every once in a while. It'll be fun. But then as AGDQ submissions opened up, and it was Chris that convinced me to do it. He was like, it's a fun idea. You have an open spot anyways. So I submitted it, and it got in. And overnight, it just blew up into this huge thing. That was like the first time that I truthfully said to myself, I need to work with him, like, for real, like, every day. Like, that's got to be our primary focus, is getting him ready for this run. It didn't take long. He was nailing runs within a week. And now, even with Griffey, he's gotten to the point where he's conditioned. He can play for like an hour straight before he starts to get tired, which is pretty freaking remarkable. I can barely play an hour before I need a break.
Well, Griffey is a great game.
It is.
Your dog has great taste. Speaking of taste, actually, is there a point, like, so we've kind of alluded to how everything works here, but yeah, you have cheese as a treat, and you hold it up, and it's like, watch or wait, and then when you want him to press the button, you say button, and you point at the button, he touches it, you give him the cheese. I'm probably doing that a little simpler than it is, but anyway, is there a point where, like, could he have too many treats? Or are you ever like, okay, we've gone too long, like you can't eat that much cheese? Like,
oh yeah, no, the cheese is our secret weapon. Actually, his favorite food is peanut butter, and that's just a coincidence. But the reason we don't use peanut butter on stage is because of allergies and stuff. They didn't even want us to bring the jar up there. So fortunately for us, cheese and chicken is also a huge ham. He loves ham, chicken, cheese. He loves everything. He's kind of a I'm not gonna say you're fat, buddy. I'm sorry. he looked at me right there. No, so my typical routine with a run that's going to be of any significant length, like Griffey or Gyromite, those are both relatively long runs for a dog, and so that's his dinner time. When he does his run is when he eats his dinner. So I'll feed him a little later in the morning if it's going to be a later stream, so that he's not starving. I don't want him to be hungry. I just want him to be ready to eat his dinner. And when we start the run, I start with kibble. And that works phenomenally because he is hungry. He'll perform for kibble, just straight up dog kibble. But usually, and he's smart, he knows if I go with too much kibble for too long, he'll start to look around like, all right, bro, where's the cheese? So we usually keep like cheese or we either use the wooden spoon and we'll use an easy cheese or like a Kong dispenser. That works great. The only reason we don't use that more is that it tends to make him focus on licking his lips and trying to get all of that off his mouth, and he sometimes forgets that he's got more work to do. But the string cheese is very rich, so we save the string cheese for those moments, like those Griffey home runs. I had string cheese in my hand, I think, on both of those. That's when I know, like, hey, you gotta focus, buddy. This is a big moment. And when I pull that string cheese out, he wouldn't look away for the world. He is all about it.
What about, and I hope you take this, I obviously don't mean any offense by this, but I think it's a fair question. How cognizant are you, or how worried are you of, like, oh, I don't want to be exploiting my dog, like...
I've thought about that, and I suppose if he was ever in a situation where I felt like he was uncomfortable or wasn't enjoying it anymore, then I wouldn't want to force him to do it anyways. But it is truth when I say it. When I pull that controller out, he goes bananas. When I get him set up to play video games, he is the most happy he ever is. And I don't know if that's because he's getting treats or if it's because he just enjoys interacting with me. But when we train, it's the same thing. He's very eager. He enjoys it. And I love working with him. So I have a blast doing it too. Regardless of the attention and all that, I love working with him. And I think that kind of rubs off on him a little bit too. He can tell I'm having a blast. And, if he is ever in the situation, like we'll be training or playing where he doesn't seem like he wants to play anymore, most of the time I'll just say, that's enough for tonight, buddy. Good job. But that's rare these days. Especially leading up to Griffey, that's why that night before was such a shock, because he hadn't had a night like that in a long time. So we were definitely a little worried going into the night of his run, but he bounced back great.
What was it like? You've obviously had, there's been tons of coverage since the event, but what was it like being part of ESPN's MLB coverage?
That was kind of nuts, man. Like this, the reaction is kind of neat, because I look at it from an outside perspective, and it is kind of neat to see something like that being done by a dog. It's not lost on me, but it does feel surreal. It's hard to believe that it's something that I did, or something that I took on. I can't take all the credit. Again, Peanut Butter is a very remarkable dog, but a lot of people told me that they didn't think it could be done. And that's something, whether that's a positive attribute of mine or not, is anyone's own opinion, I suppose. But I am very stubborn. And when I think that something is possible and somebody tells me it's not, I will usually try my best to prove them wrong. Not because of any other reason than just I like to do things like that. Like, I love the challenge of speedrunning 200 terrible games. I love the challenge of taking on speedrunning these very difficult speedruns that I've done over the course of my career. And training a dog to speedrun at first was a project that I did to challenge myself, straight up. I wanted the challenge of completing the first ever dog speedrun, but it really did change over the last year or so into I enjoy working with PB, and he enjoys working with me, and it's no longer something I do for any accolades or anything like that. I can't wait to work with him on our next game. It's going to be so much fun.
I got one more question about PB, and then I got a few about you yourself. But any sponsorships come up? The one that strikes me, like Jiffy Peanut Butter. Come on.
Right? I keep saying Purina, man. I'm right here. No, I don't know. I would love to get PB to work with folks. Right now I am. The door has not been knocked on yet. So whoever calls first is going to get a hell of a deal. But no, I'm just kidding. But no, I would be okay with doing stuff like that as long as it's for a product that I'm good with. That's been my number one rule as a streamer. Because as a streamer, you get offers for like Raid Shadow Legends sponsorships for, $1,200, but you got to play this much Raid and you got to get these many people to sign up. I'm like, I don't even like this game. Why am I going to, sell myself out for something that I don't like or something that I don't want to, promote? So it would have to be the right company. But when it comes to dogs and pet companies and that kind of stuff, the sky's the limit. I'm all about that. So we'll see if that ever happens, but it would be kind of neat.
All right. So as far as you as a speedrunner, because you yourself are a speedrunner as well. First off, your name, JSR underscore. What's up with the underscore?
That's only because Twitch doesn't allow for names of 3 letters. JSR.
That's all right.
JSR is a nickname from a long time ago, actually. I tell people now that it stands for James Speedruns, but the truth is, I used to work in music a long time ago. I was signed to an indie label as a songwriter and a producer, and I did a lot of engineering in the studio and stuff like that. And the JSR stood for Joining Sound with Rhythm. It was just some name I put together when I was younger, and it stuck as a nickname. And when I started streaming, I didn't want to just go by James. That seemed lame. So I was like, oh, I'll just go by JSR. It's easy. And it just stuck with me.
I was going to ask, actually, how did being a musician and playing live shows in particular, how has that helped you with speedrunning?
Tremendously. I think, like, one of the compliments I get as a streamer a lot is that they say I'm, like, really good on a mic. And that I can only attribute to years of being in front of crowds. I mean, my first time ever being in front of a crowd, I threw up immediately afterwards. I mean, that's a human reaction, right? You're going to be nervous, but you do it long enough, and I don't know if I would say I feed off the energy, though I think that is true. It's more you have a job to do, and you're good at it. So when you get up on stage, there's no reason to be nervous. Just do your job. Like, I've been able to do some really cool stuff in my music career that I don't talk about it a lot on stream just because it's such a long time ago. But I do have the experience of performing in front of 50,000 people on a mic, and I have been able to be an MC to introduce big acts and stuff like that. Like, you get to the point where you're very, very comfortable on a microphone, regardless of the situation. And it makes for a much more natural stream, a much more easygoing stream. I never feel nervous or anxious on stream. I just enjoy hanging out with wonderful people and getting to play old games. It's like the coolest freaking thing. I would have nerded out so hard if you told me I was ever going to be a streamer with more than like a couple people watching. I still nerd out about it. You kidding me?
Well, funny enough, and I'm sorry to make this about me for a second, but I've certainly never performed for 50,000 people, but I did have a part of my life where I was a musician doing live shows. And yeah, I don't consider myself, like, I think I'm pretty good as far as performing, and I'm not that anxious about it, but I would dry heave before every single show, which is so strange.
I used to get really nervous. Whenever I get nervous, I just shut down. Like, I just sit there in my world. I was very much like that before our run on the 4th, man. I was in the green room backstage with PB, and I told them, I was like, I don't want anyone over here. And it wasn't for PB, it was for me. I needed my space, man. I was about to throw up. But again, I wasn't because I was nervous about going up on stage or anything like that. I've done GDQ runs before. It was more just I was nervous whether or not PB was going to perform. But like I said, he was just outstanding.
You mentioned the Angry Video Game Nerd Trials of JSR, which you started in 2018, 200 games. You did them all. But tell us about that idea. Literally came to you in a dream.
Yes. Back in 2018, I had just completed what was at the time my biggest feather in my cap, so to speak. I was the first person to get the sub 30 in Zelda 1, the sub 80 in Zelda 2, and the sub 90 in A Link to the Past. And those are like the milestones that most runners want to hit when they really take those games serious. Those are the 3 like big milestones. You want to get those. But after that was completed, that was in April of 2018, I didn't have anything to stream. I was still doing randomizers and stuff, but I didn't want to keep running those games. I mean, I had put a lot of time into those games. I'm still a pretty good Zelda 1 runner, and I still dabble in those other games from time to time, but that was like my primary content was those 3 games all the time, and I was just sick of it. So I started playing other games and dabbling, and I was like, I want to speedrun something new, but I couldn't make my mind up on what to take on. And after a while, you start to kind of have like, I don't know, there's probably a word for it, and I just don't know it, but like a fear of having over selection, like too much selection. You can't make your mind up. So having a goal is a very good thing for me because it allows me to focus on it and build a plan to get to it. And so as I was trying to figure out what to do, this night I go to bed and I have a dream that I was speedrunning a game on the Virtual Boy. And when I pulled my face out of it, I had turned into the angry video game nerd, and James Rolfe was there. And he's like, all right, now you get to speedrun all these crappy games. And when I woke up, I thought about it. I was like, that's brilliant. It's going to be hard, but that would give me so much content. It would give me so much to look forward to. And it would be a hell of a challenge. I had no clue about that third part, what I was getting myself into, but I ended up going with it. I announced it a couple days later, and I dove into it, and I wasn't prepared for what I was doing at all. But for context for your viewers, in case anyone doesn't know who the AVGN is, the AVGN is a YouTuber who does comedic reviews of bad games. And some of them are just atrocious, awful, terrible games. And some of them terrified me. And when I started having to learn these, you have this thought in the back of your head. I'm in over my head. I'm not going to be able to do this. This is way too difficult. But also, if I give up, I'm a chump. Even if that's not true. I mean, even if nobody in their right mind would even take on that kind of challenge, and I definitely could have dropped out very early and would probably have, nobody would have ever, held that against me or anything like that, but I would have held it against me. I like to, whenever I say I'm going to do something, I like to make sure I do it. If I think I can and it's something I know I can do, then I'm going to do it. And there were some times where the trials really tested me, and I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about controlling my anger, about controlling my emotions, and most of all, about being able to be determined and to persevere when you're in a situation that feels overwhelming. Each speedrun is its own different puzzle that you have to figure out what's the best way for me to tackle this with my skill set and experience where it's not going to drive me crazy. And most of the time, I was able to do that relatively painlessly. I mean, the trials overall were the best experience of my life before I started working with PB. And if you had asked me a year ago what I was most proud of as a speedrunner, I would have said the trials. Like, they changed me. And I mean in the best ways, both as a streamer and as a person. Like, I find now at work, I'm a better worker. I find that I'm much more diligent in keeping up with my gym and keeping up with everything. It really did just make me a stronger person overall. And it led to me doing some really cool stuff in speedrunning too.
And now you're just now embarking on the Angry Video Game Nerd Trials 2. And your first game is GoldenEye. I may be wrong.
No, so GoldenEye is a separate challenge. GoldenEye is just a challenge run I'm taking on. I'm attempting to beat the 00 agent mode without dying or failing a mission, which has been a blast, by the way. I'm really finding challenge runs to be an untapped market on Twitch that is an absolute blast to do. I did a permadeath Breath of the Wild blind playthrough, or sorry, Tears of the Kingdom blind playthrough when that game came out, and everyone was like, "You're crazy, you're crazy." It wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, but man, was it exhilarating. And GoldenEye has been very difficult and way harder than I thought it was going to be, but still just as exhilarating. But the trials too, I'm not speedrunning them this time. Instead, I'm going to take on 200 games that I did not do in the first trials. Because the first trials, I picked a game from every episode. Some of those episodes, though, had 30, 40 games in them. So realistically, I had to pick one. So there were a lot of games I didn't get to do, either because I chose other games or because I had other options or whatever. And a lot of them are notoriously bad games that everyone associates with the AVGN. So I've always had those questions like, hey, like game number 1 that I did tonight was Batman Revenge of the Joker on the Genesis. That episode in the trials, I did the Return of the Joker on the NES, which is a very similar game in its build, but is a much better game in terms of its playability. But taking these on with no help at all, like nothing but the manual. So when you speed run a bad game, you get the advantage of watching the run, understanding what hazards there are, and understanding if there's a way to get past a certain enemy or boss. And it is its own challenge in a way, but it is a challenge that I've gotten really good at. So going into the trials too, I didn't want to speedrun them because what am I proving at that point? I kind of wanted the challenge of trying these games out with no help, and I'm really excited because game 1 was difficult, but we pulled through, and it was a ton of fun.
Before I do get to GoldenEye, I want to ask, how many Mario Kart references were made when you worked at a go-kart track?
Oh, man. I don't remember. That was so long ago. Wow. Man, that was like my first job. I don't even remember. There's probably a lot. We probably talked about maybe sneaking on a go-kart track after work one day and throwing shells at each other, but now they were strict, man. They wouldn't even let us get on the go-karts like unless we were warming up or unless it was like raining and we were testing the track out. They were super strict about that.
Fair enough. Well, GoldenEye then. Love that game. I think we have we're probably a similar age, just by the games you've played, and like Super Nintendo's my thing, and I love Link to the Past, and blah blah blah. But yeah, GoldenEye. What do you think? What are the best settings for multiplayer?
Oh man, we used to get down on when we played on Facility. There was this choke point where there's the doors and that glass pane of window where in like with the single player you have to use that computer to open that door, and there's like the locker room and stuff right there. And whoever was on that side of the glass controlled that door. So if you were playing with weaker weapons, you would just get stuck over there. So we would always play with power weapons because you had the Magnum and the RCP-90 that could go through the glass, and we would just sit there firing that at each other. Oh man, we used to do slappers only or mines on like the Facility stack. That was so much fun, dude. Oh man, I had so many good memories with that. I'm really excited to try the Switch multiplayer out. I've heard mixed things about it, but I would love to play multiplayer again. I haven't done that in so long.
You said, I believe on your stream today, actually, that you unlocked 007 mode in GoldenEye before all your friends did. So, like, have you always kind of felt particularly good at games? Like, have you always kind of thought, like, yeah, I can do this?
I always thought I was good at games in general. It wasn't until I started streaming and speedrunning that I ever thought that I was even like, I don't want to say talented. I don't think that's the right word for it. It's more like adept. I think like it's a skill that anyone can learn if they have, basic hand-eye coordination skills and they play enough games. You're going to get good at games. But I grew up a gamer. I had every console I wanted. My dad was always buy us the games that we asked for at Christmas. So I had most of the games that I wanted, and I played the heck out of them. I was a big nerd in school and didn't have a lot of activities that I was enjoying except for gaming, and baseball. Like those were like my two things. And when I got GoldenEye, it was just my first real experience with a first-person shooter. And I mean, that was a lot of people, right? Like we didn't have a good computer. We didn't have the ability to play Doom or Quake or Wolfenstein or any of those games. So this was like the first time I'd ever played a first-person shooter, and it was addicting. And it was so good. And I just found myself craving it. Like I'd be at school dreaming about coming home and trying to beat that level on 00 Agent so I could unlock that cheat. And it was a little bit of a badge of pride to be able to say to my friends, like, yeah, I got 007 mode. But no, I don't know if it was anything, that dawned on me. Because I remember one of my good friends on Twitch, his name is Cantaloupe, really, really accomplished speedrunner in his own right. He was one of my biggest like inspirations when I was new, and was a huge mentor, if you will. He taught me a lot of the strats I know in Zelda 2, for example. He sat down with me and played Zelda 2 with me for like 2 hours of his own time one night. It was actually really cool. It rubbed off on me in a big way. I try to do that and pay it forward as much as I can. But anyways, he was playing Castlevania 1 on NES, a game he's very good at, and he's considered like a speedrunning legend in that game, even though his time's not a top time anymore, because that game's had a lot of really cool speed tech that's come out over the last like 4 or 5 years. But he was playing it and speedrunning it, and I remember just my jaw was on the floor. I'd never seen a Castlevania speedrun before. And all I could think was like, I've never even been able to get past level 3 in this game. This guy's making it look easy. And I told him, I was like, bro, I can't believe how good you are at this. And he sat down with me after stream and he was like, man, you're good at games. You could be this good too. And I don't know, like it wasn't until really the trials that I kind of believed that I can play any game. And it's not because of anything I've got that anyone else can't have. It's just, like I said, it's perseverance and approaching things the right way and practicing hard and preparing yourself for the type of challenge that it is to learn a new speed run and to play a game like that. It's something that I enjoy a lot, but I've done so many times that it's kind of like almost a chore at this point, but it's still a fun thing that I think anybody who has any sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Yearning, I suppose, to try a speed run out should try it. It's anyone can do a speed run. You don't have to do a world record caliber run. You can just play a game that you're really good at for fun with a timer, but it is a fun experience that I think everyone should try at some point.
Before I get to the very last thing I want to bring up, you mentioned baseball, so that's the best segue I'll get into sports here. So I am currently wearing my Edmonton Oilers jersey because I'm a diehard Edmonton Oilers fan. But
that was such a good series, man.
Oh yes, I know. It hasn't fully healed yet. But I'm a Winnipegger, born and raised, and currently living in. So on behalf of all Winnipeg Jets fans, I have to say, boo the Vegas Golden Knights.
We got ours last year, and I'm happy that we were even in the hunt this year because like it was rough after about like the halfway point in the season. They started sliding hard because we were missing some of our better players. But
a Winnipegger, actually, Mark Stone.
Yes, but it's fun being able to have a team in Vegas for once. And I say that I'm not a big Raiders fan at all, and I'm glad we have football here. I feel bad, honestly, for athletics fans. And although I'm excited to get a baseball team, something I dreamt about since I was a little kid, that Vegas would get its own team someday. It's kind of anticlimactic in a way. Like, it doesn't feel right, and I'm not trying to get on a political soapbox or anything like that. I'm more speaking on behalf of I feel so bad for the fans because they love their team and now their team's moving after 60 years in Oakland. And I'm just, as a Vegas born and raised native, I don't want the A's. We want our own team. Like, we love the Knights. We don't love the Raiders. It's different. It's so weird. I don't know. It's just, I feel bad. And although I'll go to games and I'll root for the A's, I guess, maybe a little bit. I don't know. It's just, it feels wrong. It feels dirty. But I mean, I'm just one guy.
Fair enough. I will say, I say this obviously partially in jest. The people I'm surrounded with, like my circle of friends and family and whatnot, they loathe the Golden Knights. They really.
Yeah,
it's
a pretty common sentiment.
To be fair, I believe you knocked the Jets out in 2018, which was their big run, the Jets' big run, and then you're just constantly destroying the Jets. So I think that's why. But yeah.
I think the reason Vegas natives love their team so much is that our inaugural season and our first home game was right before the 2017 shooting.
Right.
And because of that, a lot of Vegas people were afraid to go to the Strip, to go to events and stuff like that. But the Knights were good, and they had put on a great show. They do. I've only been to a Knights game. I've never been to an NHL game in another venue, and that's going to change at some point. I mean, Crispy is a huge hockey fan. He's going to drag me to a game whether I like it or not. But no, I was a very casual fan until I started hanging with Crispy. He's a huge diehard. He's a Penguins fan, ironically, even though he's born and raised in Vegas. But that's because, the team's new. He was already a big fan. it's kind of the same thing that's going to happen, I think, with the A's. But that's, anyways. No, just having a team to go and root for, and it felt like your city was coming together. Like we just latched onto them, and like I think it was lightning in a bottle. The team was good as a new team in a city that was healing. So I just don't see how it could have happened any other way. And been as like magical as that year was. So while I understand why fans of other teams can't stand the Knights, the Vegas natives, we love the Knights just because of what they represent for our city.
It is excellent that they were able to, provide something in that time. But as a hockey fan, it's also good that Vegas has embraced them.
Mm-hmm. I think it's good for the league. I do. I mean, maybe not in terms of like the fans and how they think of the team, but I do think having a good team in Vegas is good for the league. I think so. We're a good market. We're new, and there's not as many natives as I would like there to be, I suppose. Like the city grew a lot, especially since the pandemic. It's been absolutely exploding out here.
All right, we'll get back on track. Sorry about the sidebar there.
It's all good.
Last thing, you recently celebrated 8 years on Twitch. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
First off, how's that feel?
I can't believe it's been 8 years already. I still remember my first stream. Like, there was nobody in the chat, and then I had one person trickle in, and they said it was that magical moment where you have a viewer that stays in your stream, and you get to know them, and they get to know you. Something I took from my music days that I still hold very true. It's one of my strongest creeds is that, quid pro quo. If somebody is going to spend their time or their money or anything to have me entertain them or to spend their time watching me or whatever it might be, I'm going to do my best to make sure you get your money and your time's worth. Obviously, you can't please everybody, but as long as you're always remembering that, you're very fortunate that you can stream and people watch. Even when you're a new streamer and that one person pops in, that it's like you have to think of them as they're sitting on your couch and you're just having fun with somebody that is enjoying what you're doing. It's a very cool feeling, and watching the community grow over the last 8 years has been a very humbling and very amazing. The coolest experience of my life next to PB is being a part of that. And I say that even though the community is built around me and my stream, it doesn't feel like it belongs to me. It feels like it belongs to all of us. And that is something you can't pay for. That just has to build naturally. And it took 8 years to get to this point. And I know there's bigger streamers out there and there's people who think that it's dumb to say things like this, but it really is like the coolest thing in the world. I feel like the luckiest streamer on Twitch.
Is it wild to think that one viewer 8 years ago came in and said, they asked you like, oh, do you speedrun? Like, did that get everything started? It
did. I had made a bet with a friend a long time ago before I started streaming to speedrun Zelda 1. And I had no clue what I was doing, but I attempted it anyways. So when I eventually got on Twitch, one of my first viewers that I ever had asked me if I was a speedrunner, and I said no, but I think I could do it, and they challenged me to do it. And when you're a new streamer or somebody who's not used to having a lot of interaction, you're more likely going to say like, oh, well then heck yeah, I'll do it, because the attention's fun and you like the challenge. And so I did it. And even though it wasn't a good run by any means, like it was terrible, I had no strategies, I had no routing, I was just winging it, but he was like enthralled with it and was there the whole time. And it was a moment that really changed me, because the next time I streamed, I craved that feeling of that excitement of being on a pace and having somebody cheer you on, and you're faster than you've ever been, and you feel that adrenaline rush. It is similar to being on stage in a way, or playing sports and being in a clutch situation you have to deliver. But instead of you having to rely on teammates or having to rely on the fans liking your music or you performing well, like, it's just you in speedrunning, you in the game. And in a way, I think that's what changed me the most of the trials was you're not going up against the leaderboard. You're not going up against the community. You're not going up against your fellow runners. It's you in the game. And if you win, you've beaten yourself. And I don't mean that in like a negative way. I mean that as in like you are enriching your resolve and pushing through boundaries constantly when you speedrun. And in a way, I feel like if you have the right healthy mentality to it, it can make you a stronger person. But it is a dangerous, slippery slope. A lot of people find themselves pushing too hard and getting burned out. You have to find that balance. You have to be able to find out when, okay, I need to take a break from speedrunning. I'm going to play GoldenEye for the next month. You know, like you have to be able to figure out when you need a break. And as long as you can, you know, pace yourself and remember it's all about the journey and enjoying yourself. We're playing video games. We're not doing anything super serious. There's no reason to throw your controller because you lost a PB. There's no reason to cuss and be angry. And I say that because when I first started streaming, I was very much that guy. I work construction. I'm a construction worker. We curse everything out when something goes wrong. And as you stream and you meet these folks and they imprint on you and you realize the kind of people that they want to watch and the kind of streamers that you enjoy, it rubs off on you and it changes you. And the combination of both what speedrunning does to a person with a healthy mentality is a combination that I think is a winning formula to be a successful speedrunner on Twitch.
Well, thank you so much. People should check out PB, that is Peanut Butter's run of Ken Griffey Jr. You can find that on the SGDQ website and kind of like all over the internet right now. You can keep up to date with PB and JSR at JSR_ on Twitch. JSR, thank you so much for being here.
No, it was a pleasure, man. I appreciate you spending the night with me and going over the run and speedrunning and stuff. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and I enjoy the discussions that I get to have with folks like you.